before you, Anna Robinson. She is a tea ceremonialist, among other things. And it was just last week, we were having a dialogue about inner commerce and tea and authority. That conversation took beautiful twists and turns. I really liked it. And this time we're going to be exploring, oh, actually, let me just hit go live on IG. There we go. And this time together, we're going to be exploring the topic of rhythm, but rhythm specifically within creativity and creative cycles, especially in the entrepreneurial zone. Because as an entrepreneur, I mean, I'll speak for myself, like, I don't, there's nobody pushing me to do what I do. I don't punch in on a time clock. There's nobody standing over my shoulder checking my content and what I decide to put out. And I know that a lot of entrepreneurs do struggle with feeling like they're doing enough, feeling like they're being consistent enough. A lot of the women that I've worked with over the years have said to me that they feel like they're struggling with consistency and also struggle with structure, which Anna, you and I have talked about a lot. But I think, times are different, times are changing, and I'm not the same person I was before. I'm not even the same person I was a few days ago. But one thing for sure that's been changing is that I am trusting my rhythms in creation more than I ever have. And that didn't come gracefully. I'd like to say that it did. I like to be like, yeah. And then I graduated to just trusting my rhythms. But actually how it happened was, was like, it was super messy. And I felt wrong for a few years now because I was really slowing down, slowing down, slowing down, not wanting to do as much. And I had all of the noise in my head that was saying, uh, everything from like, you're going to fail, you're going to have no money, to you're sabotaging yourself, like everything imaginable that was negative. But now I'm just coming to know, like, I have cycles, I have rhythms, I get creative spurts, and I also like to rest a lot, and I also like to do nothing, as in just play and goof off and not sit in front of my computer. So that'll be kind of the kickoff to start the conversation. I have plenty more I can say, but we'll weave it in together. What
Mhm.
what what do you want to respond to, or respond to anything you want to respond to?
I just think the realm of creativity is really rich for anybody who's human on Earth right now, um, or not. And I love hearing that you've gotten over the part of the cycle and rhythm that includes some self doubt and some self judgment. I wish I could say I was fully on the other side of this one. And I'm just aware of how that process for me has even come from a place of not even identifying with the idea of being creative, that belongs to a realm of artists and special people who are particularly good at that. And I think the reclamation of our inherent creativity as human beings is just like rife with so much growth and joy, and um, also surfaces some things that we get to play with and work with and let
Mhm.
go of, and learning, learning ourselves what kinds of creativity we feel drawn to, learning our own rhythms so that we cannot get lost in the part that tells us to never do that again because it was terrible and embarrassing,
Mhm.
or whatever particular version of that you hold. That just has like brought so much joy to my life, both
Mhm.
professionally and personally. So that's what I'm really excited to dive into.
I like that you brought this in right away about, a lot of people don't identify with being a creative, and even that you didn't, I didn't know that, but I so I actually want to speak on that a little bit because we are inherently creative because we are creating our days each day. We're creating our realities in each moment. That's a creative endeavor. It's just that some are doing it with more awakeness or awareness than others. And the longer that I'm at this, the more sort of playfulness I bring to it, which I really enjoy. And then because I've come to know and see, like, I really the experience that I'm having in any given moment is being sculpted by me, through me, by where
Mm,
I put my attention. It's the ultimate creative act. It's why in the Lumina Guild we talk about, you are the artist and the masterpiece. Like our life is our ultimate masterpiece, sort of designing our life for um, I recognize that this sounds kind of fluffy, but like designing and even funny, but designing our life for self-pleasure.
mm,
Actually, like designing our life so that it's for me, designing my life so it's more pleasurable for me. That's my ultimate act of service in the world, because the more I do that, and the more alive I am with that, the more I show up, the more present I am, the more a force of love I am in the world, the more available I am for what wants to flow through me. I'll pause there and see
mm.
what you might want to add.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a big part of what drew me to your world in the first place was this idea of an artful life and
Mm,
and the reality separate of the desire to create something that's joyfully and uniquely of me. That even if we're not doing that intentionally, we're doing it anyway. We're just
mhm,
allowing other imprints to dictate what we think is possible to create. And so
mhm,
to take a stand to build a life with more joy and more pleasure
mm,
in a world that doesn't necessarily model that as the imprint that we follow, I think that is being an artist, right? That is a incredibly
mm,
creative endeavor. And I think
mhm,
all acts of creativity take some level of courage because you're pulling something from somewhere invisible and bringing it into this world, right? And so why not do that in a way that brings forward what we actually want to see? That's kind of a very reductive way of putting it, but
I love that. I think there's something I want to speak to around that I've had come up for me personally over the years when I would hear other people sort of talk in this vein that we are, where if I was particularly at times in life when I felt more at victim of circumstance and of circumstances that really did not feel good to me, I didn't want to be in, and I mean, look, I just had an experience like this a week ago, so I'm not free from that experience of feeling victimized by life. Like, wow, I don't want this. Wow, where did this come from? But
I'll relate to
so,
that.
so I think depending on where a person's at when they hear what we're talking about, it might either feel like, well, yeah, easy for you, or, well, yeah, that you have the ability to do that, and maybe I don't. And it is true that there is a certain measure of, if we want to weave the word in, privilege of um, uh, this. I have certain measures of freedom that I know that my grandmother didn't experience
Mm,
in life, that even my mother didn't experience in life. And I don't take that lightly. And also, I have deliberately, consistently, and by consistently, I just mean over time. I don't mean consistently like every day, always every day, but over time, crafted it this way, decided that I want to have a joyful life. Like, I remember when I was in spiritual community for a decade, and we it was like a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of intellectualism in it, and I was very serious about it, and it was about having an enlightened or awakened experience in this life, and that message sounds beautiful, but in the teaching itself, it was rigorous. It was very rigorous. And I remember asking my dad, he's now transitioned, but I said, Dad, when I was in the thick of all that, Dad, what do you think is the meaning of life? Like, what's the purpose of life? And he said, to enjoy it. And I thought, what is his problem? It can't just be for us to enjoy it. That is wrong. But, I think ultimately everybody gets to choose how, the philosophy by which they want to live their life and how they want to be led. And that's, it's part of the beautiful creativity of the human existence. But now I know, like, why not have a joyful life that, by the way, includes grief and includes challenge and includes frustration, includes all the things. But I just return to this essence of me that is inherently creative and that wants to play. And I get to see it in Kiara, who's now 2.5, every day. Like whatever I say, what do you want to do, Baba? She says, play. We just before I got on this Zoom, we made tomato piggy soup. It was very fun, just on her little stove. But I think that's inherent in the spirit of humans, and yeah, I'll stop there.
Yeah, I think looking towards the children, looking towards our own inner children, even to remember that it
Mm,
is so natural.
mm,
I also um I was at a friend hurt her leg recently, and she's staying with some people I don't know, and they have a young daughter, and I was just visiting her to make sure she was okay. And the young girl came in at one point when she got home, and she was like, "Can I read you what I wrote?" Like, she was so excited, and then proceeded to read, today is Wednesday and I went to the park. Like, it wasn't a brilliant masterpiece, but she was so proud of what she had written and she
mm,
wanted to share it. And I think you mentioned being in a more intellectual environment. I think we all have that in whatever way, where it's inherent in our being, and then we go
mm,
through, maybe we do that, we're so excited, we show it to somebody and they're like, that's terrible, or I don't, even indifference, not even just criticism, or we go
mhm,
through, school, and we learn to look at
mm,
things critically, and we pick them apart, we tear it down instead of celebrating this. I mean, pretty incredible when you think about it, that
mhm,
you sit down and write, and words exist on paper that didn't exist before because you chose
mhm.
to do that, or you sit down and paint, and something is in the world that never was before because you did that. And whether it's
So
beautiful or
cool.
terrible, or anything in between, just the act itself of bringing something into form, I think is it feeds us, it nourishes us, it's important.
It's that nourishment piece is huge, and even what you said about the act of bringing it into the world, uh, it also whatever we do bring into the world, like, it couldn't come through anyone else like it came through us. Even this
Mhm.
conversation that we're having, which is a creative conversation because
We didn't have a plan.
we're we don't have a yeah, we have a title, and
Yeah,
but we're not it's not scripted. And it could only these words that are being said, whatever I'm saying is happening in relationship to you and in relationship to us in this conversation. And it couldn't happen in another way. Like, I just think that that's so cool. It's
I think
so cool.
I think so too. And there's a
Um,
lot of power that comes from that too, the ability to direct that intentionally, like what we could
mm,
build if we really claimed that part of us. Everybody.
mm,
That excites me.
mm. I could not agree more. Do you want to say more about that in your experience, like claiming that more?
Sure. I'll speak a little bit to my journey, which is, I mentioned I identified and was really in a lot of environments that were highly intellectual, and doing well in school, and having a just much more logical brain was really celebrated in my upbringing, and I'm grateful for that. I love my mind, and
Mm,
when the mind is that strong, I think it really suppresses other aspects of ourselves. And so for me, even this concept of understanding that we're creating the lenses through which we perceive reality on a moment by
mm,
moment basis.
mhm,
And, maybe that sounds weird to people because we just know what we know. But when we start to become aware that that's happening unconsciously all the time, we start to be able to actually intentionally believe or not believe or let go of or turn towards the things that really support us. And so it was through that process and my own healing journey that creativity just started to show up. I started to
Mm,
turn to writing, and the voice of the writer that was writing started to change the more I did it. And I
mm,
started writing poetry, and I started becoming really interested in music, talk about rhythm, not something I had naturally. I really had to cultivate that. Um, and then, music, playing guitar and learning to write songs, like these things started to, without effort, just start to come into my world and come with so much joy that it was impossible to deny. I'm like, I mean, who am
mm,
I to write a song? But then who cares? Because I'm
mhm.
having so much fun. It doesn't have to be good.
You
Nobody else has.
inspired me so much around that, just so you know. I mean, really, you were deeply inspiring around that.
Oh, well, thank
Just
you.
how you went for it and have continued to go for it. It's incredible.
Yeah. And I think I say that just to, like, that was not available to me. If I had tried to do that 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, no part of me would have been available for that. And so I do think it was this evolution of landing more deeply in the truth of who I am. And I think when we all do that, different creative avenues are going to show up, different forms of expression are going to call to
Mhm,
us because
mhm,
um, again, I do think that it's not just for the people who are really good, and it's not just for the people who learn to do it young. Like, it's creativity is a part of all of us, um, and to trust that in the rhythms of our lives too, and the seasons of our lives. And I go through periods of time where I'm like writing all the time, and then I go through periods of time where I read them, and I'm like, okay, like these aren't bad. And then I'll read them a little while later, and I'll be like, oh my god, this is so embarrassing, and I should just like like there's a flow, and as you said, it's not always super graceful, but
mm,
I really believe worth it.
It's so worth it. Actually, that's what I want to go into next is there's two threads I want to pull on, which one is the so worth it part, and and kind of connected to that is uh, this idea of healing. Um, it's like three things. Yeah. Okay. So part of this also my little plug for the Lumina Guild because it's also part of what we're doing right now. Like that the project within the Lumina Guild of creating a publication together is so cool and so exciting, and that sort of spontaneously arrived into the field. Somebody had the idea and then it took off, and now there's a little group which you're part of that's helping to bring it into being. And who knows what we have a theme that we're going to be writing on creative emergence, but who knows what we'll create together. And so there's fun involved. There's spontaneity and novelty. I'm sure that some people through the process of doing it will experience what we would call healing because they're going to face certain things and feel certain things in themselves, but be held within a container that can hold it, not because the container is trying to heal them or fix them, but because if they've longed to write and they kept putting it off because they have a story about not being a writer, and now all of a sudden they're like, oh, I'm going to write. And when you got a group of people doing it, it's just so much easier, and when it's delightful, it's so much easier. And so whatever those things were that which really comes down to beliefs and like habits of thought that hold one sort of root bound or more contained than their soul actually wants to be. It gets to get aerated, it gets to breathe, and that is the ultimate healing. I mean, that's sort of the ultimate foundation of all healing, is the remembering of our wholeness and our creative essence. And so for probably 8 years now, I've known, oh, I've just had a very different perspective on healing than most people in the healing arts. And my background is in, as you know, it's naturopathic and Chinese medicine. I had a clinical practice for 20 years. And so
Mhm.
when I started having this awareness of my different orientation to healing, I actually would not talk to other people in the healing arts about it because it felt like heresy or something like, no, this is not okay. This is not okay. But I just kept sort of nurturing these thought explorations within myself and using my own being as a living experiment. Like, what happens if I just keep giving myself over to what's calling me to be created through me? What
Mm,
happens? Yes, I've got baggage. Yes, I have trauma from my past. Yes, I've got all that stuff. But and I've done a lot of healing work that's part of my foundation. But there came a certain point in time where if I kept actually doing that kind of foundational work, expecting that that was going to make me healed, which would mean then I would have everything that I wanted or do everything that I want with ease, that actually is not, it doesn't add up. It's not what's true. So then it's like, okay, I'm going to give myself over to the creative, what wants to move through me, and I'm going to do it as an act of spiritual path and
mm,
soulful curation of my own soul. And I can attest it's really true. It really works. It really, really, really does work. And now I don't just see it in me, I see it in other people. And I think it's extraordinary. And that's part of the foundation of the guild, is this is built on this
mm.
premise that
Yeah.
healing, real, profound healing happens through saying yes to what you're
Mm,
getting called to that wants to move through you, which in and of itself is a creative process and creative act.
yeah. Yeah, I also want to put a plug in for the Lumina Guild, which is, any part of us that has learned to suppress our creativity or has learned to judge our creativity is something that we picked up from the world. It is not inherently a part of who we are. And it's very easy to meet messages in life from all walks of life that say that the creative path is one of suffering. You can't succeed that way. It's
Can't
not
make
for you.
money.
Who are you to do that? Yeah, you need to be extraordinary, all the things. And being a part of a community that is celebrating your creative emergence, that is celebrating your courage, that is encouraging showing up to the practice and witnessing what comes out of it, like that kind of support in my experience has been essential in moving
Mm,
forward and not freezing and not collapsing
mm,
and also finding a lot of joy and connecting.
mm,
Art isn't meant to just exist in a vacuum. It's meant to be connective. It's meant to, convey something that meets the world. And so to do that in community, I think is a really special offering. And the Lumina Guild has an incredible group of people who are all in their own courageous, creative unfolding. So highly recommend.
we're so, oh, that's
Yeah.
really cool. That's so beautifully said. I, I've, I'm, I'm feeling one thing coming here, and then I also would love to hear you connect what you just shared with your upcoming offering. Like how, actually, let me feel the timing of this. Mm. Yeah, okay. I'm going to say this and then I'm going to go to that question that I just asked you. Is
Mhm.
that I think the things that we have had a longing in our heart to do or create that just came from somewhere. Who knows where? We don't even have to know where. I mean, I remember when I like woke up one day and said that I want to make cooking videos. Like this was back in the day. I mean, I did it. I made cooking videos. That was actually the beginning of my proof of this orientation that the creative process is healing unto itself. And I was scared to death. I was so terrified to stand in front of people and talk. At the time, I was in my 20s, late 20s, and I had a coach that I was working with. Thank God, because she wouldn't let me she wouldn't let me not move forward with it, because she would always have me say, "What is it that you're wanting to do?" And I said, "I want to do this," but then I wouldn't bring it up and wouldn't bring it up, hoping that she would never bring it up again. And then she's like, what about this thing that you said you want to do?" I don't know. She really wanted me to take some action steps forward. And finally, when she's like, what's the deal? And I just said, I'm, I mean, first of all, I didn't even know where to begin. And I was terrified. The truth was, I was just actually terrified of the whole thing. Just even starting to think about it freaked me out. And so she just had me take one step, suggested I take one step, which was to join Toastmasters.
Mm,
And I was in Toastmasters for a year and it changed my life. I mean, it was like a destiny changer for me to have the impulse to make these videos, to make them. And, it wasn't a financial success. I actually, like, right at the time that I made these cooking videos, the technology was changing where it was going from DVDs. They weren't actually videos, they were DVDs to clips online, digital or downloadable or easily watchable clips. But the the success of it was in my change, my
Mm,
very real change of who Tiffany is. And so this last piece is that I think that it's very challenging as an adult to be new at something, especially when you've had mastery in other zones of your life. I think that there's a lot of resistance that can come up to doing that. And it's not easy. Like, it's not easy, but it's also one of the most extraordinary processes. And when I said that you really inspired me with the music, it's because that's something that I also want to do. But it's one of those tender zones where I haven't quite hasn't been quite the right time. But I've also been afraid, and I'm just afraid to be a beginner at it. But there's going to come a place when the desire sort of outweighs the the fear, and I just start taking steps forward because I trust
mm,
that process in myself.
mm.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, I love that you brought this in. And I think it's really relevant to rhythm. Like like why do we not feel comfortable being a beginner as an adult? Like I think that's a really good question to ask. And the answer I would give immediately is we find comfort in knowing and having some kind of certainty. And one, I think in some ways that's always false, fabricated to some degree, because
Mhm.
really nothing is entirely certain. Everything has a rhythm, everything has a cycle, everything is always changing. And when we latch on to the certainty of what we think we know, we miss out on so much.
Mm,
Um, and, what I wanted to say in part to like also answer your previous question and link this back to my program is there's stages. There's different aspects of rhythm and cycles. And as I'll just speak collectively, as a culture, we're much more comfortable with some stages than others. We're much more
mm,
comfortable with the doing. We're much more comfortable with the very visible, like the sexier aspects of things. And that's unnatural to feel that we should always be in productivity or always be in creation. There's an aspect of the creative process that is silence, that
mhm,
is receptivity, that is boredom, that is very uncertain and very uncomfortable and requires us to be willing to lean in instead of turn towards what we know or turn towards a TV show or something where we start to consume. And I think that's one of the things that gets in the way for a lot of people. We can have thousands of things take our attention. There's infinite distractions that exist that we're intaking information from the world around us. And creativity is this really beautiful thing where we're actually pulling something from inside of us out into the world. It's different. And if we're constantly bombarding ourselves with more information, new information, we don't
mhm,
have as much room to flow out of us what isn't necessarily logical or linear, but that comes from somewhere that we're listening inside. And so this program that I'm running Back to Center, it's not
mm.
only about creativity, it's actually about coming back to that center, that truth underneath. Oh, all right, universe is in support here.
I didn't know we
Um,
could do that on here.
yeah, Zoom has a bunch of these funky little things that,
But you're not even on Zoom. How'd you do that?
oh, you're right, we're not on Zoom. I don't know. It's the same.
Whoa.
Um, anyways, yeah, it's about kind of getting rid of the noise that we've accumulated over the course of our life and really coming back to the truth of who we are. And from that place, when we learn to listen, when we learn to clear out what isn't us, more of us takes up space and starts to naturally become creative, starts to naturally reclaim our voice and speak our words and become a little bit more authentically expressed as ourselves. And so that's what I'm really excited about. Creativity. it's not necessarily this end result. You kind of spoke to it. It's, where does healing begin and or end and creativity begin? They're feeding
Mm,
each other always.
mm,
Uh, but sometimes it takes a little bit of work to get to the place where we can even hear that voice inside of
that's
us
true.
that we choose to express. And so
That's
um,
true.
I I have had a personal tea practice for many years that has been a spiritual practice for me to show up to myself, to welcome everything. And what I've noticed is that it also kind of clears my channel and makes me more available to write and to receive inspiration for creativity. And
Mm.
um, even separate of anything that flows from it, it brings me back to myself. And so that tea practice is also part of something I'll be teaching in that program. And
Oh,
what that will bring about is going to be different for each person who chooses to show up. So I'm
ah, so
excited.
cool.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
it's starting either like maybe the end of this month, May we're in now, or June.
May
Some
26th.
May
Yeah.
26th. Okay. Uh, do you want to? I'll include the link to it when this gets posted, but you can
Mhm.
also say it out loud if you want. If people wanted to just do a search right now to find it.
We talked about that last time.
Yeah.
I think if people are doing a search, the easiest way is to find me on Instagram, and
Oh.
my handle is at, oh gosh, Anna.Robinson.22, I think it is.
Uh-huh.
And in
That
my
sounds
bio,
right.
there's a link to all the things. I do local tea ceremonies. I have a poetry book. In that program, you can kind of see all of the different things there.
Oh,
One
that's so cool.
last thing I want to say about that, though, is I think even letting where you find support, letting where you find inspiration, letting what program, what person, what teacher, what modality calls to you be a creative act in and of itself. Like really like
Mm.
listen to what in your own heart space is really asking to be seen, and follow the thing that feels right to you, because I think that's also an important muscle to flex in the creative journey, and in trusting ourselves to know.
Follow the call. Follow the call.
So,
Without necessarily an agenda of exactly what it's going to give you, but you just know you're answering the call.
or any
Mm-hmm.
evaluation of whether it's right or wrong. Like
Mm-hmm.
start
Mm-hmm.
to rebuild trust with that part of you.
Mm. I think that's a beautiful place to end.
Mhm.
Anything else you want to say in closing?
Just always so grateful to co-create conversation and space with you, Tiffany. So appreciate
Yeah,
you,
I
anyone who's
really
listening.
enjoyed this. Yeah, and to anyone who's watching, listening. Thank you, thank you. Stay on, Anna. I'm going to end the stream.